In case you're wondering if this motorcycle, this beauty right here looks familiar, you have most definitely seen it when we reviewed it last year in Spain at its world launch. Meet the new Ducati Panigale V2. A motorcycle which I think looks absolutely smashing and is built with just one aim in mind, to make this the lightest Panigale ever. And it most definitely is, weighing in at just 176 kgs without fuel, making it a colossal 17 kgs lighter than the model it replaces. And the aim here was essentially World Supersport supremacy. Previously, all the smaller iterations of the Panigales were based on their bigger siblings, essentially the same motorcycle with a smaller engine. But in this case, they decided to throw that out of the window and start with the blank sheet of paper, trying to make it the lightest Panigale ever, and this is the result. Everything on this is built from the ground up, including the all-new engine, which is obviously the biggest talking point. This one makes all of 120 horsepower instead of the 155 horsepower of the previous model. But again, the idea here was to have a much wider power band. This one gets variable valve timing, so a much wider power band. And yeah, in case you have seen my last video, you probably have information about all of these things. You already are very well versed with the Panigale V2. So in case you're wondering, then why on earth are we again on a racetrack reviewing it all over again? That's because I felt like I was at a brand new track in Spain that I'd never been on. I honestly did not really get 100% comfortable with it. So I'm like, I would like to try it again back home on tracks that I know very, very well. And I thought, what better way to test it than at MMRT, which is a track which I know at the back of my hand, having been there for countless times over the last couple of decades. And we did try to review it there, but I had a small incident, which means that we had to forego the review. So we are back at possibly and arguably an even better location, which is the Coastt racetrack. This beautiful tarmac with its elevation changes, this really wide track, the never-ending corner that it has. So we are back here to test Ducati's claim that this is hands down the lightest, the most agile, and the easiest in terms of physical effort that they have ever built among all of their Panigales. Really chuffed to be here with Mad Rabbit Racing on their amazing track days to see what this baby can do on a brand new track, and if it's going to leave me completely destroyed or have me smiling like a fresh daisy. Let's go find out. Yeah, we couldn't have found a better place to test the Panigale V2, and it did go to show what we were trying to prove in terms of this is a really fast track. It's a really challenging track. There are so many blind corners, so to get acquainted and get comfortable with a track like Coastt, you need a bike which will make things easier and not like a very powerful bike like a V4 basically be trying to kill you while you're still trying to get your head around where the track is going. So from that perspective, I think the V2S definitely, like my experience was when I tested in Spain, was essentially the same here. We have had 2 fantastic days of riding this machine here, belting it out, and you be the judge. I still feel fresh as a daisy. The biggest standout thing behind this is, of course, the engine. There was so much talk about how losing our 35 horsepower is like going to be the death of this machine and so on and so forth, but that's before you try it. Once you try this engine, you realize what a cracker of an engine this is. You have such a wide power band, you have such amazing torque from just 3000 RPM, and it just pulls and pulls and pulls. Not once did I feel like, oh, this feels underpowered. It keeps you so engaged, it's so involving. So the engine for me is a big check. Also because when you're first learning your way around the track, it gives you the freedom, you know, even if you're going in a gear or 2 higher, it has your back. It's not going to punish you. You'll still end up clocking a pretty decent lap timing while still building your confidence. The bi-directional quick shifter is absolutely bang on. very crisp, very precise shifts right when you want them, and just the way it sounds. Yeah, this one of course has the Termignoni exhaust system and it sounds otherworldly. The next thing which was much talked about was of course the revised ergonomics, with the foot pegs being a little more lower set and further forward, the clip-on being a little raised. And I think when I first started out on this track, this was definitely a big help, because you're not really sat in a very aggressive position. You have this beautifully designed tank, and what this raised handlebar does is it opens up the rider's triangle. You're not really crouched down like crazy, there's not as much pressure on your wrists, and it does help you get acquainted with the track without really insanely tiring you out, as is the case with most super sport or super bike machines. But I do have to say that later on, even though the cornering clearance was never really an issue for me, on a track like this, which has so many never-ending corners, especially the really long left hand at the back, that's where I felt like I would have loved to try the lower clip-on, mainly because that was the one thing which I struggled with this motorcycle, was front end feel. It's insanely agile, it is very quick on its feet, but under really aggressive braking, when you're entering the corner, when you're trail braking into a corner, I still felt very disconnected with what the front was doing. I never really had a moment, even though we were running Rosso 4 Coastt tires rather than Super Corsas or Slicks when I previously tried this bike. And again, that was done on purpose because I wanted to understand how this bike behaves, how this engine behaves, even when you don't have like super sticky rubber, how good the electronics are, and they continue to shine on. But even with these tires, which are not as sticky as say a Super Corsa, not once did I have a moment going in, but I also have to say that I did not have the confidence to push that much further as I would have liked, because I did not really have as much feel coming from the front end. So the raised clip-ons do play a part there. But I think the biggest problem with that is down to the suspension, primarily the soft spring in the forks. Because if you can look at the forks, my zip tie, which is the marker, is right at the bottom. This is what was happening every single time I was braking. I was bottoming out the forks. We had already set up this motorcycle for my weight. We had already dialed in the preload. It was at the right sag it's supposed to be. And we could have gone for a little more preload, but that would have most definitely changed the geometry of the machine, and we would have lost out on the agility which this bike is renowned for. So I think the soft springs for me are the Achilles heel of this motorcycle, because when you're paying that much money, you're paying for a V2S, which is what they say is like as close to a race bike as you can get. You expect equipment which is good enough for hitting the track and the bike to perform as it should. But right now it looks like it's a really good setup, but the suspension is still set on the softer side, especially the springs, designed more for ride comfort on the road rather than on the racetrack. And because I was bottoming out the forks, I was also having a lot of trouble with the brakes. The brakes, mind you, are really potent. The upgrade to the M50 calipers has made a huge difference. But again, the very fact that every single time I'm braking, I'm bottoming out the forks, meant that I had to completely change my riding style. I had to basically brake a lot more progressively to get it to do what I wanted to do. So brakes are actually quite good, but I think the front forks, the springs, when you change them, the bike will be another different monster altogether. The other thing that I would add and would have liked on the motorcycle is definitely a steering damper, because especially when you're exiting the parabola at the back and you're quickly changing direction when you're on the gas, yeah, I got quite a few of those tank slappers. So which one would I personally choose between the V2S or the Street Triple RS or the ZX6R? For that, I think you will still have to wait till I ride those machines here at Coastt, so I have a much better idea about how those bikes feel on the same exact racetrack. Only then I can give you a fair idea about which one would be my preference and for what reason. But there you have it. That's the new Panigale V2S. It's undoubtedly the lightest and the easiest Panigale to ride, especially for new riders who are just getting into track riding, I think this is a very good option for sure. And yeah, I cannot wait to ride my ZX6R here to see which one would come up on tops in my personal opinion. Until then, ciao.